Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya ja vaidikena yopakaruttam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi stuve Patanjalim vyasam shankaram cha munitrayam katra sutrasya bhashyasya pramadvyaranasya cha. We are approaching the end of this text, that is Kaivalya Pada. You may remember, of course, it's difficult to remember the whole process of yoga evolution, but I want to give a brief analysis, a kind of recapitulation. In short, yoga is all about going back into ourselves and finding our true identity. Discovering our true identity is called Kaivalya. Kaivalya means liberation. Now, in the 4th chapter, we are going to discuss the 27th and 28th sutras to begin with. So, we should keep in mind what is meant by liberation in the yoga tradition. We all normally identify ourselves with our mind. When we act, when we speak, when we think, we always associate ourselves with that mechanism called mind, which is an integral part of all our activities. So we identify ourselves as our true nature with mind, which is called the chittam in the yoga system. This is wrong. This is what yoga tells you. Mind is not the real I. Mind is not the real you. The real I is Purusha. This is what yoga wants to teach. So how do we reach this stage? We have traveled a long distance from our true nature, Purusha, down the path of evolution, and finally we identify ourselves with what we perceive, the different external objects, and from this we have to journey backward, trace our evolution backward. That backward evolution is called Pratiprasava in yoga system. What it means, going back to our roots, our true nature. So, from external objects, Pancha Mahabhutas, from senses, from mind, from intellect, we all finally reach the state of Mahatattva, from which all these evolve. For the students of yoga philosophy and Sankhya philosophy, it would be a good idea to keep in mind there is one subtle difference in the evolutionary process explained in the yoga philosophy and Sankhya philosophy. In Sankhya philosophy, ahankara, the ego system, is the origin of the senses and mind. But in yoga philosophy, it is Mahatattva. Mahatattva is a cosmic intelligence, the first great evolute. So as we practice, to begin with, we practice Kriya Yoga. Those of you may remember in the Sadhana Pada, the first sutra is Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. That's what we are discussing right now in Stanford. That's the first sutra. So that is the kindergarten, that is the primary school, so to speak, of yoga evolution. So you practice Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, you practice good actions, good thoughts, good ideas. Feed your mind with good ideas by reading books that spiritually enrich our mind, by associating with people whose association may help us to enrich our mind, by chanting holy names could also uplift our mind. So through Karma Yoga, through Bhakti Yoga, through reading listening to good ideas, we actually work on our mind. So these activities will help us to gradually get out of the kleshas. Kleshas are the obstructions, pancha klesha, avidya, smita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So we have already discussed this subject. Those who are interested, you can come to the beginning of the sadhana pada, which is in our text. It is second chapter. So that's the beginning of yoga life. That should be kept in mind. So as we go through these dissolution or destruction of kleshas, obstacles, what happens, we get out of the stranglehold of samskaras. Otherwise we are all slaves of samskaras. That's a tragedy of human life. We are all, in modern psychology, we are all slaves of our habits. That's what happens. So in yoga psychology, the analysis goes far deeper. It says these habit formations are not so superficial as we understand. They have a deeper layer, they have deeper roots, deeper origins. They have an intense, a deep background. So that's why even when we try sincerely, we cannot break from certain habits. And if you forcibly try to break from your habits, that could create conflicts. So these conflicts will force you again to fall back to old habits. Well, the most telling example is the phobias or maybe obsessions. Like they say there was a billionaire who. So he used to be accompanied by two of his friends whenever he went for shopping, because he will steal things from the shop. Without that he cannot get good sleep. He has to steal something from the shoplifting. So his assistants or servants, paid staff, will watch what all he has stolen and will send back to the shop. So they won't mind it. After he could afford to pay, he was not stealing in the regular style of a robber or a thief. That was his habit. You go on checking whether the door is locked or not. You go on washing your hands. These are some of the classic, we call them obsessions, habit formations in their most dictatorial, tormenting manifestations are these obsessions. But that apart, even in ordinary life, if we try to change a little bit of our habit, even a habit that we know to be very harmful to us, drug addiction, drinking, gambling, smoking, may not be included in that, we're wrong. All those things, So in modern times, obsession with internet or computers, all those things are examples. So they are not just going back to what you did in the past. It's not that you automatically go back to a past deed, because a deed is superficial, but the past deeds have created a deeper layer, a subtle, strong, deeper layer, which is called samskaras. And that is a great contribution of Vyasa. Vyasa is the first great modern psychologist. Modern, so far as Indian philosophy and civilization is concerned, Vyasa is very modern, really speaking. Vyasa belongs to maybe the first millennium BC, so to speak. So he was the one who gave a detailed analysis of samskaras, that even if you try, you cannot get out of it. So if you forcibly try, it could create conflicts. And the conflicts can create a lot of problems. So you somehow have to do it that way. Then only you feel rest, you feel happy. So this is samskaras. So these deeper layers of samskaras completely vanish when you reach a higher level of concentration. yoga. And that state is called, it's called prasankhana in Yoga Sutra. So you can find it there. So you can, in the Yoga Sutra, later we'll discuss these things. Prasankhana it is called. So remember, prasankhana is a technical term that is used in Vedanta. In Vedanta, prasankhana means dhyana abhyasa. So one important thing to remember is in Indian philosophical systems, the same word could mean different things in different contexts, and the same word could have different connotations, different definitions, different meanings in different systems of philosophy. The same word, for example, prasankhana in Vedanta means dhyana abhyasa. You listen to your teacher. You listen to some holy Vedic statements, mahavakyas, and you understand the meaning, and you constantly contemplate on the meaning of that great statement, mahavakya, and along with that you also do karma yoga. This level of spiritual practice is called prasankhana in the Advaita tradition. It is part of the it is called one of the Bhamadi Prasthana, which I am not going deeper. It's part of Advaitic dialectics. The two schools in Advaita Vedanta, one is Bhamadi Prasthana, the other is Vivarana Prasthana, according to Vajaspati, according to this Sureshwara's previous, before he became a monk, he was Mandana Misra, he wrote Brahma Siddhi. So he says that what you may listen to a great Vedic statement, but immediately it doesn't become an experience. So you should go on practicing for a long time. Maybe in this life or next life, you may realize the truth of that. So gradual evolution is necessary, constant contemplation on the meaning of the particular great statement. It's called prasankhana. But here, prasankhana means proper discrimination, the right understanding, which is a prelude, which is the same more or less as the kaivalya or liberation. So you can go to the 28th sutra, those of you who have got the book, Prasankhyanī abhi akusidasya sarvatha vivekakhyādehi dharma mekha samadhi. So technical words are included here. So in Prasankhana, when you reach this level of proper discrimination, when this right discrimination here means the discerning wisdom, it is much more than rational analysis. In rational analysis, your judgment may not be infallible. Later you may repent of what you did after a lot of rational thinking. So reason can go wrong. Reason is not infallible. It can go wrong. But there is a higher level of wisdom, which you can call the sublimated instinct. Instinct in its lower state is below reason, is irrational. Animals have instincts. So every day if you give food, a food item to an animal, it may come for seeking the same food next day, exact time. It's an instinct. It has no reason. And then you evolve, you become a human being with proper reasoning power. And beyond that, beyond the reason, there is another state where instinct is of a different type. Your judgment becomes infallible. You can even see things beyond reason. You can understand things which reason cannot explain. You can understand and explain things which rational thinking cannot fully understand. So that particular state is called prasankhana here. And Vivekananda and other great teachers tell you that the great men, all great spiritual teachers, have reached this state of, we call it intuitive wisdom, which is infallible. So you find in the 30th sutra, which we are going to discuss, this subject is given more I mean, it is more emphasis. So, prasankhyanē api akusidasya. So, even when you arrive at this higher discrimination, discerning wisdom, where you know the knowledge of everything, what happens? A person doesn't care for these skills. So when you reach this prasankhana, which is a spiritual quality, which is spiritual skill, you also get a lot of powers. We discussed this in the Vibhudipada, it's already mentioned. When you do a lot of meditation, when you do a lot of scriptural reading, prayer, mind also develops certain skills, which is called Vibhuti. Yoga philosophers are very quick to point out that there is nothing occult about this. Just as you acquire a lot of skills, lot of knowledge, lot of powers when you do laboratory tests, you can produce certain results. So also when we practice meditation, prayer, proper discerning wisdom, proper thinking, then what happens? We develop certain skills. Now, there is a difference between a real yogi and a yogi who is not of the highest type. A real yogi, the great spiritual teachers are examples, they may develop these powers, but they don't care for them. They may use perhaps, but not just to parade, but for a good purpose they may use, but they are not attached, they are not enslaved by these powers. That is why, prasankhyanē api akusidasya. What happens? A yogi who gives up all the fruits, the one who is not interested, one who is not attached to these powers, powers produced by pranayama, meditation and so on. What happens, Then, as a result of this prasankhana, perfect discerning wisdom, a state of samadhi is reached, and the state of samadhi is called dharma megha in yoga literature. Dharma megha can be the cloud of virtue. A lot of natural good qualities will come to you. And the difference between these great yogis who have these good qualities and others who acquire them, the difference is these yogis may have them, but they do not make a big deal of it. They don't parade it. They are not attached by these skills. So I shall read Vivekananda's translation. It's interesting. When the yogi has attained to this discrimination, all the powers mentioned in the last chapter come to him. That is Vibhuti Yoga Vada. But true yogi rejects them all. Real yogi won't care. Unto him comes a peculiar knowledge, a particular light called Dharma Megha, cloud of virtue. All the great prophets of the world whom history has recorded had this. So interesting. That is a special reference that comes from Vivekananda. So he lived in 19th century. Incidentally, Vivekananda is the first modern interpreter and exponent of Yoga Sutras, who connected the ancient wisdom of the commentators of Yoga Sutras with modern era. So he says, Swami Vivekananda says, all the great prophets of the world had this wisdom, the Dharma Megha, cloud of virtue. Megha means clouds. Virtue, Dharma means qualities, all the great qualities. So now, it's not that these qualities become an attribute to them, it becomes their second nature. So, and that's why one unique characteristic of great spiritual teachers, they may see certain things and understand certain things that reason may not reveal. Because reason is burdened by the limitation of intellect. Reason is linked to our intellect and mind. So whatever knowledge we have right now, on the basis of that knowledge, that information, we try to analyze certain things, and that's what we call reason. Reason is burdened by certain limitations, the limitations of mind, the limitations of intellect, the limitations of our own resources, and the state of mind, of course. But this particular kind of instinctive wisdom, which Vivekananda says all great prophets had, possessed, it is an infallible. That's where they were able to do things and see things and write things which perhaps their own contemporaries didn't fully appreciate. But in the coming centuries, the truth of what they taught becomes more and more obvious, really speaking, Well, I want to give a very, very simple example. If you listen to the great musical traditions of Mozart or Beethoven and modern, highly violent music, you can imagine. See, how about it? A lot of noise, people get excited. People like that. Or you may read Tolstoy's War and Peace or Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment or Brothers Karamazov, maybe Shakespeare, English language perhaps. You compare them with the modern paperbacks, cheap things. I don't want to mention anybody or anything, but you can see that. So you find that these great novelists, in fact, I'm talking about creative writers, who are not yogis really speaking, but what they wrote, perhaps their own contemporaries would not have fully understood. But as ages pass by, you read more and more, and the wisdom of the creative writing, they're not prophets, as Vivekananda has been. They didn't have this prasankhya mentioned in the Yoga Sutra. But even the literary classics, they could discuss and touch upon certain universal spiritual truths. That's true of the great teachings of Buddha or Christ or Shankaracharya, Ramakrishna, Bhagavad Gita. Take any of these great books you find. People go on reading, they don't die. And there are many people who throw away. They are totally different from the bestsellers or the sensational works which bring out the momentary impulses, from the human mind. So you can imagine. That's because they had this prasankhya. That's what Vivekananda says. This higher wisdom. So they so far into things and deep into things. So Swamiji says all the great prophets of the world whom history has recorded had this. That found the whole foundation of knowledge within themselves. So where did they get all this knowledge? To find. Perhaps they did not from books. In fact, the whole Vedanta, even Bhagavad Gita, today we are reading Bhagavad Gita because Shankaracharya wrote a commentary, a 16-year-old boy wrote a commentary on that. Today we are reading Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, Vivekananda says, among many other great things he did, something that we can never forget for a moment is Bhagavad Gita. The greatest classic of Hindu or Indian tradition, spiritual classic. If Shankaracharya had not written a commentary, nobody read Bhagavad Gita as a sacred text before him. And after him, Mahabharata is remembered because Bhagavad Gita is a fraction of the whole Mahabharata text. Or a Sermon on the Mount, very small, tiny speech, so to speak. So, Buddha's Dhammapada, these are great examples. Because they had this prasankhya. They found the whole foundation of knowledge within themselves. Truth to them had become real. So, very often truth for many is an objectified knowledge. You come to know certain things. But truth for them is something which they see and experience as a fact or for a fact. Peace and calmness, the perfect purity became their own nature after they had given up the vanities of powers. So that's something very interesting to remember, and is very crucial to remember in modern context. Vivekananda writes, that's why I'm reading this, is very important. Now, those who care for these powers, they collapse. The higher you fly, lower you fall. Those who do not care for these powers, they become yogis. Not that they lose their powers, no, they don't lose, but they reject these powers. Right? Rejecting here means they do not make use of these powers for their own benefit, for any selfish purpose. So that's why akusidasya Vivekakyadehi dharmamekha samadhi. This vivekakyadi is a perfect discrimination. Discrimination means discerning wisdom. Vivekakyadi. Vivekakya means the wisdom. Wisdom that goes beyond reason. It is the highest spiritual wisdom which expresses as an instinct. Not real instinct, because instinct as such is below the level of reason. But wisdom as instinct is far beyond reason. Because you naturally, spontaneously do the right thing, speak the right thing, and live in the right manner without any effort. So that is called vivekakhyati, that proper understanding. So what happens, if they go after these powers of yoga practices, then they frequently get into very serious trouble. What happens, frequently they become proud of it, then they lose their alertness and their vigil, and then they fall victims to the temptations of the world. I do not go beyond that. People who have read history can understand, modern history of 20th century, understand. So the 29th sutra is Tataha klesha karma nivrittihi. From this, there's in the previous sutra, those who have read, dharma mekha. When you attain this dharma mekha, what happens? Then all problems, all the dukkhas come to an end. Klesha, karma, nivritti. So three types of dukkhas: adhibhaudika, adhyatmika, and adhidevika. Certain problems caused by nature, and certain problems caused by our own bodily mental system, disease, etc. And certain problems caused by powers which are beyond our control. So these are some of the problems that we face. And also the habit formation. Karma nivritti means karma phala nivritti. So we get liberated from the stranglehold of our own Prarabdha Karmas. That is an idea behind. So what is the order of the dissolution you find? First we get of avidya, asmida, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, panchakleshas. And then we get out of the accumulated huge reservoir of samskaras, impressions, habit formations, etc. And then what happens, we completely get freed from the clutches of these all kinds of internal, external problems and obstacles. And then only one problem remains, Prarabdha Karma. So, I shall explain this. Now, what happens, see, the karma is a very complicated concept in modern times. The word karma really literally it means action. The word, the Sanskrit root is kr. Kr karane, is Panini Sutra. I means kr dhatu implies any kind of activity. That is the basis of the word karma. Any kind of activity. Now, activity need not be necessarily mental activity. Activity can also be physical, mental, verbal activity. You speak a word, you think and do certain things. All these are different kinds of activities. These activities matter because they leave behind certain residual effects which we discussed many times earlier, vritti, vasana, samskaras, etc. So these samskaras left out. They are the results of certain actions, thoughts or words that we were part of in the past. So this is again the obsession of the stranglehold, the dictatorship, the tyranny of habits. Now, you get total freedom from this tyranny of your own habits when you reach this viveka khyati and when you reach this dharma megha, the cloud of virtue. Now, only one kind of activity is left out, Prarabdha Karma. So I shall try to explain this. These karmas and their results altogether can be divided into three categories. One, the accumulated karmas is called Sanchita Karma. I mean, in a way, our actions, our words, our habit, our nature, the way we think and act and behave, all are influenced by our previous actions, the impressions, and so on. Of these, one part of karma phalas, results of actions or samskaras, are responsible for the present life. The way we are born, where we are born, the parentage that we are associated with, the culture, the language, the geographical region. All these are somehow or other linked to that part of the karmas which have started unfolding. It is called Prarabdha Karma. Now, if you remember the meaning of this word, the whole philosophy, the whole dynamics of transmigration becomes clear. Prarabdha means prakashena arabdham karma, prarabdha karma, prarabdham karma. So, arabdha means that you started, already started a journey. Prakashena means in a very comprehensive manner. So, one part of our karmas have already started fruition, unfolding. And as a part of this unfolding process, we are born in a particular family. We are born in a particular culture. We speak a language. We inherit these things. Well, it is not fatalism. In fact, there is a very scientific analysis to that. What we aspire for in our everyday life, we try to become. We may see, let's say, a child who goes on dreaming, thinking, reading, or becoming a football player, 49 or something. And he goes to gymnasium every day, eats a lot, and tries to be at least 7 feet or something. And that's what he's trying to do. He may not join, but at least he may be in the local school or college team, he may become a member. He may not become an outstanding player. Somehow he may a smaller specimen at least will become. If you go on dreaming and working hard, idolizing, let's say, a great writer or an actor, you will somehow may not become an outstanding Oscar prize-winning actor, but you end up being some kind of a local drama, something like that. So somewhere you will certainly reach the goal. Now suppose we have, in our whole life, we have done certain things, actions, behavior, thoughts, words, all in one direction. If you believe in the dynamics of rebirth, next life, you will be born in a situation which is conducive, appropriate to your expectations, to your actions, your strivings in this life. So, this Prarabdha Karma is often considered to be, it is compared to an arrow that has left the bow. It has to hit the targets. It is in flight. The archer cannot draw it back. It has left the archer. He has no control over it. So our present life is the result of the unfolding of Prarabdha Karma. So this Prarabdha Karma alone remains intact. The karmas responsible for the present life remain intact. But the accumulated karmas are completely are transcended, they are destroyed, and you have no more agamika karmas, no more karmas to come. So karmas are, sanchita karmas, past impressions remaining yet to unfold, not yet started unfolding. Agamika karmas are karmas which may happen, which may accumulate, which may unfold later. Prarabdha karmas are karmas which are already unfolding in front of us, part of our life. It's a result. Our life is a result of that unfolding of the Prarabdha karmas. So, when you read this dharma mekha, this higher intuition or intuitive wisdom, Prarabdha karmas remain intact. So you can get out of the habit formations. So the point is, if you tell a person, you are no more this body or mind, you are something beyond this body and mind, you are something beyond these thoughts and habits, that may help him to get out of this tyranny of habits. Otherwise, there is no way to get out of habits. And Vivekananda says, when the dharma mekha has come, then no more is the fear of falling, nothing can drag the yogi down. The point is, this higher instinctive wisdom comes along with a lot of calmness and serenity. And it comes to you only when you say no to all the powers and skills that you may develop as part of yoga practice. So many people who are fallen by the wayside, who made some progress but then not more progress, they are examples of those who fail to say no to these powers, to could not reject these powers. So Sri Ramakrishna, in one context, Sri Ramakrishna was a very simple person, He had the highest of this wisdom, but spoke very simple language, not the proper English, nothing of the kind, He was a simple person. He says, these skills, vibhutis, he compared these vibhutis to something which is very, very funny. You read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. To the worst and most undesirable, the dirtiest and filthiest that you can think of. That is what these powers are, Sri Ramakrishna says. So he was naturally free from all this. So the Vivekakhyadi, proper discrimination, this wisdom was natural to him. So you can imagine this. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you say. So, one day, there's a very interesting incident in Sri Ramakrishna's Gospel. One day, a devotee was there, he was a good devotee, he was a nice man, he was an employee, and he was sitting in the Sri Ramakrishna's room. But Sri Ramakrishna was talking about God, about religion, about realizing Mother, Divine Mother and so on. But this man was holding Sri Ramakrishna's toe. And then the Sri Ramakrishna was in half samadhi. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "Oh Mother, what is the fellow going to get by touching my toe?" Because he thought somewhere in some Vaishnava scriptures it is written, if you go on holding the toe of a great spiritual teacher, the spiritual power will be transmitted to him. So this fellow was not interested in what Sri Ramakrishna was teaching. He was not interested in Vedanta, he was interested in this. So you find in the Gospel very funny scenes. So Sri Ramakrishna says these powers are the most detestable and the most rejectable things. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says. Only people who reject this will get this inner serenity, inner peace, inner calmness. Inner calmness doesn't mean inaction or inactivity or insensitivity. It means in the midst of all these activities, the ability to remain mentally undisturbed. That's what it is. Then the 30th sutra is very important. Tada sarvavaranamalāpetasya jnanasya anantyat jneyam alpam. This is the sutra. So, at that state, that is the state of total liberation, you get this knowledge which is free from all impurities and it is infinite and there is nothing more to be known. So you can read Vivekananda's translation. Knowledge itself is there. Its covering is gone. One of the Buddhist scriptures defines what is meant by the Buddha, which is the name of a state, as infinite knowledge, infinite as the sky. So Buddha, the Buddhahood is a state. It should be understood very clearly. The word Buddha in Sanskrit literally means the enlightened one. So Buddhahood, or the state of being a Buddha, was the result of a series of evolution that Buddha underwent for so many life cycles, maybe around 443, 448 life cycles in Jataka tales you find. So he was born as human beings, as princes, as elephants, and in the animal kingdom, among the birds, among kings, emperors, and so on. Buddha had so many different types of roles in so many life cycles. It's an ascending order, a journey towards Buddhahood. That's why when for a moment, when the Siddhartha, that is his name, the prince saw, as he was riding on a chariot on the street, when he saw the face of a sick person, an old man, all sides of misery, and a procession of a dead body being taken to cremation ground, and also the serenity on the face of a sage seer. That immediately reminded him of all his previous life cycles. So here he was a married man. He had a young wife and a child. Buddha was the embodiment of compassion. Remember, Buddha tried to save a goat, ready to sacrifice his life for a goat. I compare that with the story of Abraham, Abraham sacrificed a goat. Buddha was ready to sacrifice his life for a goat and a cow. That's the story. So he was the embodiment of compassion. So I have been asked questions in some meetings, some retreats. Buddha was so cruel that he left his wife and child alone in the palace. But if you look at Buddha as what he was, what he suddenly remembered when he saw the face of a sage and contrasted that vision with the other three visions, a dead body, a dead person, old man and sick man. Suddenly he remembered the truth. And so from the higher discerning wisdom, actually he had the Viveka Khyadi, it was only covered by a thin layer of Prarabdha Karmas. So immediately he left the palace and he traveled more than 1,000 miles and sat under a tree and became Buddha. The Buddha's famous vow that he took when he sat under the tree to meditate before becoming Buddha, it is said in the Lalita Vistara, Buddhist text of 2nd century AD. Ihasane sushyudu me shariram tugasti mamsam cha vilayam cha yatu aprapi siddhim bahu janma durlabham naivasanat kayam adaschalishyate. I am sitting under this tree. Let my body perish. Let my body be reduced to bones. Let my body and flesh, everything be reduced to bones. I won't get up from this seat before and without reaching that highest spiritual wisdom. Bahu janma durlabham naivasa. So he says that higher spiritual realization which can be attained, which is difficult to attain even after several life cycles. Without attaining that higher wisdom, I will not get up from this seat. So he is referring to maybe possibly his own previous life cycles, which he remembered and went back. So, when you reach that state, what happens? You get the knowledge, which is infinite. Sanantya. So it means it is infinite as the sky. Swami Vivekananda has something to say about Jesus. He says Jesus attained to that and became the Christ. The Vivekananda said he had this yoga. So that's what Vivekananda says. This is very interesting. So Swamiji's translation of this Raja Yoga book, this Patanjali Yoga Sutras are very crucial because it somehow links these ancient ideas to our own times, to contemporary times, and links to some other religious traditions. So the conservative baptized Christians may not be very eager to appreciate this view, but Vivekananda says that he had attained this higher wisdom. That's how you become a spiritual teacher, higher spiritual teacher. All of you will attain to that state. That's anyone can attain. So the process is, it's called reverse involution, it's called. By evolution, we have started from Prakriti, Mahatatva, then Ahankara, then our senses, mind, intellect, external, the subtle Tanmatras and Panchamahabhutas. So we have traveled a long distance downward up to this present level. Now we can retrace our steps and go backward. Actually, it is going forward, really speaking, going towards our roots. It is called Pratiprasava, where we, through meditation, through yoga practice, we go back to our original pristine state. So that we discuss in the coming class. Now we can ask questions. Interaction. Yeah, we have got about 5 minutes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about this. With a finite mind, and a finite human being, and the cosmic mind, and cosmic intelligence, there's a linkage here. And this going back to the spiritual home where we have come
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
And for various reasons.
Why don't you give the mic to him?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
You can continue from beginning. I mean,
So for various reasons,
Yeah.
there's a division, a separation from the divine.
Yeah.
Yet in essence, we are divine.
yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering if the human mind, as finite as it is a reflection of the cosmic intelligence and the cosmic mind. So there's like maybe a predestination that we're already divine, but we don't know we're divine, and we're waking up in the process of this life cycle. And we have experienced other life cycles and maybe more to come. So there's like almost a ahistorical establishment with the divine. And we're sort of trying to go back in an evolutionary sense. I mean, there's involution and evolution.
Counter evolution.
And counter-evolution.
Yeah.
So it's a journey. It's
Yeah.
a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And what about this cosmic mind and cosmic intelligence?
Yeah. Yeah. The cosmic mind is
Thank you.
Mahatattva. Cosmic mind is Mahatattva. It's a cosmic mind, the first evolute. So once we converge, once we get dissolved in Mahatattva, then the next is Prakriti, and then that time you understand you are not this Chitta, you are not Prakriti, you are really Purusha. That is the yoga perspective. When you reach that state, for that we begin by Yamas, then Kriya Yoga, and slowly through constant practice of Abhyasa, Vairagya, and then one after another, all these disciplines. Then the first thing that strikes us is there is something other than this body and mind. That we realize. We may not transcend the mind, but we will have second thoughts about considering mind as the absolute reality. Because we experience the wavering of the mind, which convinces of the transitoriness of the mind, limitations of mind. That's an important thing. So actually, we may not be able to transcend the mind at the beginning, but once we start doing some spiritual practices, the first thing that strikes you is that you feel that there is something higher than the mind. Mind is not the highest. Mind is certainly not the most sublime. There is something higher than the mind. So that's what really comes to the first stage. Okay.
Well, the human ego has an appetite for life and engagement in life.
That's gone completely when you practice this. That's what happens. It's an appetite is there, or that appetite is linked to, it attached to this body. Once that is gone, once you start looking upon these things as perishable things, you know it, everyone intellectually knows, but that knowledge doesn't translate into a real attitude. Yoga translates what we know to our attitude. What we know intellectually may not become our attitude all the time. Yoga really gives a sense of the reality of what we actually normally understand.
So say a little bit more about instinctual wisdom, because there's human wisdom, and you're saying that there's an instinctual wisdom.
That existential wisdom is this higher intuitive wisdom which you reach as a result of this Vivekakhyadi and Dharma Mekha mentioned, the dawn of proper discerning wisdom.
Is this intuitive wisdom? Is this another English
it's
word?
Intuitive wisdom. It's an intuitive wisdom which is difficult to call it wisdom because it is an unerring judgment. Judgment doesn't have its negative connotations here. Unerring understanding of things as to what they are. That's what it's. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. So we will soon shift our classes to the older temple. Just a few things are yet to be ready. After that we will have classes in the older temple. Okay. So most probably we will take a Bhagavad Gita. That's a better we can. Yeah. Okay. Which includes everything, you know. Yeah, yes. Okay. Okay.
Next Friday is here.
No, not next Friday.
Next Friday is here.
Yeah, next Friday is here. But I mean, not next Friday, but as soon as a few things are to be ready, then we will shift to the old temple. Yeah.
Next year?
No, next year. There is one view that's better to do after January 1st.